How is it going, YouTube Mo Sports Network live from my college dormitory with my bed that's hardly made right behind me? I would not call that a made bed. And today, we are doing something big that I've been looking forward to for a long while. We are doing my 2021 NFL Mock Draft 1.0. I've been putting a lot of work into this, so please support the video. Please share it if you can. There is going to be footage of players in this video, which means it'll probably get in trouble. So you guys need to help me share it. So if you can, that'd be so appreciated by me. Ground rules, okay? No trades. I think this will be a crazy trade draft this year, with a lot of the situations going on, a lot of the quarterback talent. I think this is a great year for trades. There will be no trades in this mock draft, although I think they definitely could happen. And then second ground rule, there are two kinds of mock drafts that people like to do. They like to do it for accuracy, or they like to do it for what they would do and analyzing their evaluation of talent. And that's the one I'm going to do. All of these picks are picks I would do. Fans of these teams might not agree with me. The GMs of these teams definitely won't agree with me. And I just want you guys to know that going right into this. So as we start, I'm going to do the least controversial pick ever that everyone in the world will agree with, and I'm going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars taking Trevor Lawrence. There was that little controversy for a bit that Urban Meyer's the coach. Will they take Justin Fields? No. Trevor Lawrence is the best generational quarterback prospect we've seen since Andrew Luck, the best one I've seen ever. I think the only one I've evaluated even like in the same ballpark as Trevor Lawrence is Joe Burrow's tape last year, but Joe Burrow wasn't as incredibly consistent from freshman to sophomore to junior year as Lawrence was with Clemson. Lawrence's arm is great. He has mobility. He's just excellent. This is a slam dunk for Jacksonville. Good for them. The Jets. I had two schools of thought with the Jets, and one of them doesn't really work because I'm not allowing trade downs. So I'm going quarterback. I'm going to move on from Darnold, probably trade him out for a second or something. I think you could probably still get a second from Darnold. Get another good player in this year's draft. Be somewhat competitive in the AFC East next year, in all honesty, when taking the quarterback. Now, you look at my sweatshirt, you go, oh, God, you're going to go Fields here? And in all honesty, I'm not. Justin Fields has several flaws. He stares down his receivers too long, which is the main one. I think he has a lot more difficulty reading the field than who I'm picking here, and Zach Wilson out of BYU. I just think Zach Wilson is more advanced than Fields. I think Fields at the end of the day probably has more upside if he can get his shit together. But it's not 100% together, and you saw that in games. Of course, he destroyed Clemson, but in the Northwestern game, Fields had, and somewhat in the Alabama game, this was an issue. And there was one other game this season, Fields Indiana, the second half. In all those games, Fields, there are definitely problems that were shown, and that's why Fields isn't my quarterback too. But not enough about Fields, more about Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson had an excellent season. Yes, he was playing against Mountain West competition, but I think Zach Wilson has definitely done enough to make himself my quarterback too, and I'm going to have the Jets selecting him as the QB of the future along the line. Get something for Darnold. Everyone's happy. Dolphins, we are selecting Penei Sewell out of Oregon. So the need for offensive line in Miami isn't as glaring as it was last year, but I think Penei Sewell is the best offensive tackle prospect we've seen in a long, long time. Eric Fisher was the number 1 overall pick, and I don't think even he was as good coming out as Penei Sewell is. This one's just an absolute no-brainer. The Dolphins are going to be in a position to take a receiver, which is another need later. But if Penei Sewell's there, you don't pass on him. So the Dolphins take him at 3. The Falcons now fall into a pick that I absolutely love, and it's Justin Fields. Why do I love this for the Falcons? Well, Matt Ryan's still there, so Fields gets to sit for a year, which is very much needed. I think he has some of the most tools of any quarterback in this draft. Although with Lawrence, I don't think anyone has as many tools as him. But of the quarterbacks not named Trevor Lawrence, I think Justin Fields has the most tools in this draft to potentially come really good. the Falcons' offense is still loaded, even if Julio retires soon. You still have your Calvin Ridleys and your Russell Gages of the world on the Falcons, so Fields will have weapons to throw to, and he gets to learn behind an excellent quarterback for a long time in Matt Ryan for a year or two before it's his time. So I think Justin Fields is a great pick for the Falcons. Next, we move to the Cincinnati Bengals. They're pissed off that Penei Sewell's gone, so I'm going to have them selecting Jamar Chase, the next best thing for them out of LSU. The reunition with Joe Burrow is obvious. This would be great. This would be probably Burrow's recommended pick other than Sewell. There's going to be starting caliber linemen in the second round still. There's starting caliber linemen in free agency. Of course, that line needs to get better for Cincinnati, and they should focus on that. I wouldn't be pissed at a Rashawn Slater pick here, but I just think if you look at the potential receiving core with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd, so they have two great outside threats and then one of the best slot receivers in the league. I think the Bengals will probably be a top 5 receiving group going into the year, could be the best in the league coming out. You can delay an offensive lineman just a little longer, and I know Burrow got hurt and that's devastating. I'm a Bengals fan, I know, but you can keep it a little longer for establishing one of the best receiving groups in the league. The Eagles. Okay, so Carson Wentz is probably gone. So Jalen Hurts is probably the guy, and he's going to need a lot of help if they're going to want to win. I'm going to go Devontae Smith, that 2020 Heisman winner. I think that would be huge for the Eagles. The receiving core, there's just a lot of questions. Like, Rieger's been hurt. Deshaun Jackson's always hurt. Alshon's hurt. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside sucks. Greg Ward and Travis Fulgham, they're fine. Neither of them are anywhere near what Devontae Smith is, though. Nick Sirianni's going to have his work cut out for him. I think this Eagles team is in a weird spot right now. But if the offensive linemen get back healthy, if the defense starts to play a little better, I think adding Devontae Smith with Jalen Hurts, they know each other from Alabama a little bit. I think this is a match made in heaven for the Eagles. So Devontae Smith here. Lions, there are two schools of thought here again. Are you going to give Jared Goff a shot? Are you not? I'm going to go all in on Jared Goff here. And free agency, I'm going to pick up a receiver. Maybe it's Kenny Golladay. Maybe he wants to get the hell out of Detroit. I don't blame him if he does. And then I'm going to get another receiver here in Jalen Waddle to go all in on Jared Goff. Is that smart? I don't know. You still have a really young receiver for your future quarterback if Goff just flames out this year. But I think Jalen Waddle's really good. I have his highlights going in the background. You can tell he's a good player. Golladay and Marvin Jones are both likely leaving in free agency. So this is going to be the Lions' biggest need regardless, other than maybe quarterback. I don't think they're going to try and tank this season, although they might. A lot of people think they are the worst team in the league. I wouldn't blame you if you said that. I just don't think Jared Goff's that bad. I'm going to try and win this year from the Lions. So Jalen Waddle helps with that. He goes 7. 8, the Carolina Panthers. I'm going to make this pick to directly counter the Falcons picking Justin Fields, sort of. The entire 2020 NFL draft for the Panthers was defense. And that was to counter a very tough NFC South division with what we now know are the Super Bowl champion Buccaneers, as well as the Saints, who had a ridiculous offense, and the Falcons, who have a really good offense every year. Their defense just stinks. So to counter this, I'm going to pick Trey Lance, and he's going to develop alongside Justin Fields, probably sit for a year behind Teddy B. They have Teddy B for another year. And then by 2022, how this plan should be going, what you might be looking at is a Tom Brady either slowing down or retiring soon. Drew Brees is gone. We don't know what's happening in New Orleans. Taysom Hill, I don't think, is going to be the future quarterback of that team. Maybe he is. I don't think he's that good. And then Justin Fields and Trey Lance potentially running this division. So I think this draft could be huge for that. both of those guys, Fields and Lance, they both need development. Let's get that straight. Lance has incredible talent, though, and I think it'd be foolish not to give him a shot if you're Carolina. I think there can be arguments that the Lions should go for Lance or someone should trade up for him. So I really like Trey Lance. He goes here at 8 to the Panthers. I think it makes a lot of sense. The Broncos. Finally, we're going to take a defensive player. Crazy that in 8 picks we have not taken one. That's got to be some sort of record. I'm not sure exactly. But we're going to take Patrick Surtain. I'm not quite giving up on the Drew Lock experience, more because I don't think there's a high enough upside guy here to take over Drew Lock. The only other guy you can argue for is Mac Jones. He's in the first round. I think you need to send Mac Jones to a decent spot. And he will talk about him later. So I'm just going to take Patrick Surtain. He's my favorite defensive player in this draft. The Broncos secondary was, A.J. Boye's getting bad. Like the safeties are pretty good. But they need a real outside corner. So we're going to have Patrick Surtain here as the selection. Maybe help Vic Fangio save his job, because I'm scared that if Drew Lock doesn't work, he's going to be a scapegoat, and he's going to get thrown out the door, even though I think Vic Fangio is a really good coach. So Patrick Surtain here out of Alabama, excellent corner, my favorite defensive player in the draft. Cowboys are going to take Caleb Farley here. I think the Cowboys offense should return to what it is. So the biggest discussion with Dak back is what the hell's wrong with that defense, because it sucks. I think the biggest need's probably going to be somewhere in the secondary. And I think Caleb Farley and Patrick Surtain are the two best, probably can't miss prospects in this draft. So I'm going to take just the most sure thing on defense, try and shore up your defense a little more. Take Caleb Farley. You can let some corners walk in free agency in that case. So I think that makes a lot of sense for the Cowboys to take Caleb Farley here. He's excellent out of Virginia Tech. Just watch, and it's evident that he is a really good player. Between Farley and Surtain, the cornerback one, it's not that far apart. I think they'll both be lockdown corners in this league. So next, with the Giants picking, I'm going to pick Gregory Rousseau out of Miami. Now, I get why Rousseau's falling down boards. He has some technique issues, and he's going to have issues dominating NFL tackles because he's just been trying to dominate in college with pure talent. Also, he sat out a year, but in his age 19 college season, he had 15 and a half sacks. He was the consensus best edge rusher coming into this class by many. And I, in all honesty, watching him, I'm going to probably attribute more like overanalyzing to him falling a little bit, if anything. I mean, obviously he's not like a top 3 or 4 pick after watching a little more, like a lot of people said. But I don't think 11 is a reach for him at all. He'll be 20 when he's drafted. He's growing into himself even more. I think he has the best upside of any player in this draft, edge rusher-wise. And I think even like after having the most upside, other than a couple players, he's probably just the best. So Greg Rousseau going at 11 to the Giants, who need help on the defensive side of it. They need help at a lot of places, but again, I'm not willing to take Mac Jones here. I think that's where the Giants are sitting, is they just kind of need a quarterback, but they're in like this weird purgatory right now. But I think Greg Rousseau would be a great player to plug in anyways. 12. I don't think Mac Jones is going to be better than Jimmy G, at least for where the Niners are at right now, trying to win a Super Bowl. I'm going to take their biggest other need, which is going to be corner. Richard Sherman, Jason Verrett. Is it Jason? Jason Verrett, Ahkello Witherspoon, all slotted to be free agents. J.C. Horn isn't Caleb Farley or Patrick Surtain, but I think he's still a very good corner. If the Niners can bring even one of those other corners back, I think this defense should still be at a very high level despite not having Robert Salah gone to the New York Jets. Good for him getting that job. Um, I think the defense will still be really good. Um, let's just say you bring back like Witherspoon and Horn. I think the secondary is still very serviceable. Along with the Nick Bosa returning, this defense is going to be ridiculous. And then you just hope Jimmy G stays healthy. Chargers, they are ecstatic because Rashawn Slater falls to them, and they're going to select him. This Charger line stinks, and they are very lucky that the same thing that happened to Burrow did not happen to Herbert. Slater can play tackle. He should be replacing Sam Tevi. If the guards really, really suck, because they're not great in LA, but if the guards are that bad, he can play guard. Sam Tevi can play tackle still. Either way, he's versatile. He's the second best offensive lineman in the class, and they'd be doing Herbert a disservice if they didn't get him more protection. So Rashawn Slater here going to the Chargers. Now at pick 14, the Minnesota Vikings are on the clock, and I'm going to have them selecting Kwity Paye. Now this defensive line would be absolutely gross if this happens. Kwity Paye is a physical freak, in the vein of like a Montez Sweat coming out of Mississippi State. I think the Vikings would 100% take a Montez Sweat right now. Daniel Hunter's coming back. Michael Pierce is coming back to the interior. You could kick some other guys inside. Paye, Hunter, Pierce, anyone else could be that interior other defensive lineman in the 4-3 base. I just think this defensive line would be disgusting in that case. I want you to develop the corners more, because they just got thrown into the fire, and I want to see more out of them. I'm not ready to draft another one just yet. Linebackers and safeties are good, and this Minnesota defense could be back to a Zimmer defense, just with the addition of Kwity Paye and the guys coming back from taking the season off. Offense was good for Minnesota last year. I think they will be a competitive team this year if they make the selection. I think that's simple. So Vikings pick here. Now the Patriots. The Patriots are like the first team I'd think about Mac Jones. Now what I think they want to go all in every year because they're New England. I think they're going to pick up one of the free agents, whether it's Fitzpatrick or they're going to give another shot at Newton or Jameis or hell, even Mitch. I think Mitch could be okay in New England, especially with the player I'm going to take here. I'm going to take Kyle Pitts. He is and isn't going to be like Rob Gronkowski at all in New England, because he is nothing like Gronk as a player. But I think the dominance level that Pitts could have in New England, it's just impossible not to want to take him. I know they took 2 tight ends last year, but Pitts isn't even really a tight end, in all honesty. I just think he's a perfect fit in New England. McDaniels would just have wet dreams of thinking about what he can do with Kyle Pitts. And so I think Kyle Pitts is an excellent selection here to New England. Just a gross weapon for them to add, along with Edelman and Damiere Byrd and Jacoby Myers, and they will figure it out in New England. I'm not out on the New England train yet. I said McDaniels is having wet dreams. Whatever. All right, the Cardinals. The Cardinals need help in their secondary. There are no secondary players, in my opinion, that are worth taking right now after the first 3. So if Horn, Farley, or Surtain are here at 15, I think it's a no-brainer. Or 16, it's a no-brainer. But I'm not gonna reach up for any of those other guys. So I'm gonna take Micah Parsons. This is definitely a luxury pick. And they need help in their secondary, obviously. But I'm going to take the best other defensive player. I think he's suffering for similar reasons to Greg Rousseau, where he didn't play. And that's obviously going to affect his stock, out of sight, out of mind. He also has had some off-the-field issues, which can't be understated. But I don't think it's like a 20-pick fall sort of issue. He's a stud. Isaiah Simmons last year was a stud. Those two guys growing together, along with Budda Baker, along with a returning Chandler Jones, Hassan Reddick's growing into his own. This Cardinals defense is a thing, and if Cliff can just be consistent on offense with this team, they should finally be in a position to legitimately compete for the playoffs next season, and that's what I'm hoping if I'm the Cardinals. Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders. I was going to say Oakland Raiders. I'm glad I stopped myself. Their defense sucks. It sucked for a while. I'm going to try and let these corners grow into their own. Between Trayvon Mullen and Damon Arnett, and whatever guy they're probably going to bring in this offseason, and the other guys that were already in place for a couple seasons before that, I think their secondary needs to work itself out, and eventually it will. This season, they're either going to find out that it sucks, or they're going to find out that it's okay. They went all in on linebacker last offseason. They got Raekwon McMillan. They got Corey Littleton. So we're going to go edge here. I think Clelin Ferrell and Max Crosby work together enough. But I want some speed. I want some real speed alongside Max Crosby to get him back to what he was looking like in his rookie year. So I'm going to get Azeez Ojulari out of Georgia. He was gross in the bowl game, if you guys remember, against Cincinnati. Similarly to Rousseau, he's only 20, and I think he is a stud. I think Azeez Ojulari is a great pick here, and I think that Raiders defensive line is something to be reckoned with. You can maybe even click Clelin Ferrell inside sometime, although the interior isn't horrible of this defensive line. I think the Raiders defense pretty soon is not going to be as horrible as we're all saying it is. So the Raiders take Azeez Ojulari here. Dolphins, we're taking Rashad Bateman. Rashad Bateman, I think, is an excellent piece. Rather than reaching for a Jamar Chase or a Devontae Smith in the first round, I think the Dolphins are ecstatic. Bateman's still here. He's like a big body slot, sort of in the vein of like your Tyler Boyds of the world. You already have two pretty good outside receivers. Devontae Parker has been really good the last couple of years. And then Preston Williams has been banged up, but he's really good at what he does. So with those guys and Bateman and the addition of Sewell, I think Tua has everything he's going to need to be successful. And this is the year you could really evaluate Tua if he's good. Fitzmagic's probably gone doing his own thing. So it's the Tua show with a more than capable offense. So let's see what he can do. Now at 19, we have the Washington Football Team, WFT. And this is finally when I see Mac Jones coming off the board. Alex Smith was a great story this year. He's cooked. He's done. He can come back. He can be a mentor for Mac Jones. I think Alex Smith is actually a pretty decent comp to Mac Jones. Good Alex Smith. Although Mac Jones isn't as mobile as Smith was, Mac Jones probably has a better arm than Smith had. I digress. I think Alex Smith is a nice mentor if he sticks around. He has a chance to be on the team next season, although Washington has like a way to get out of some money. I think he'd be a great mentor for Mac Jones. But if not, I think Mac Jones kind of is what he is a little bit at this point, sort of tools-wise, talent-wise. And I think Washington, this would be a pretty decent pick at quarterback to try and get a quarterback who could play for the future. They do have the greatest quarterback of all time and Taylor Heinicke on their roster still. They just re-signed him, so he could be the starter. I don't want to say that. I think Mac Jones is probably the best pick for this team, although I see this team being probably pretty active in the quarterback market as well. But you're going to fuck over the Bears, which is great. You'll always love to see that. I like the Bears. Speaking of the Bears, next pick, they really wanted Mac Jones. If I'm the Bears, I like even think about pulling the trigger on like a Kyle Trask or a Kellen Mond at this point. I'm not. You can get those guys later. Nick Foles is the only quarterback on the roster at the moment. I'm going to take Christian Darrisaw. I don't think the value here for a receiver right now is very good. I think you could probably sign a free agent receiver to attempt to replace Allen Robinson. That or hope Miller and Mooney can step up without Allen Robinson. I think the Bears have one of the best lines in the league with Darrisaw. You have Charles Leno, James Daniels will be back. You can kick Cody Whitehair to guard again. You can move Jermaine Ifedi back inside, which is where he excels, and Darrisaw can be the team's right tackle. Probably a top 10 line in the league with Darrisaw. The defense is still great. They can figure out quarterback if they can get a Jameis Winston. If they can get Carson Wentz through a trade, this team's in a really good spot, I think. I'm not giving up on Carson Wentz. This team's in a really good spot to compete. The Colts are next. They need to replace Anthony Costanzo, who just retired somewhat surprisingly. QB is an issue for this team, obviously, with Jacob Eason being the only quarterback signed right now. The Colts, like the Bears, I think, and Washington to an extent, those three teams, it's all sort of interchangeable. Any of them could take Mac Jones, I think, and any of them could take linemen, I think, depending on what they do in the QB free agency. I think the Colts will probably be the one who signs one of those free agents, and they're going to take Samuel Cosmi out of Texas. Maybe, I don't know if Braden Smith should be at right tackle or left tackle. One of them will be right, one of them will be left. Your interior offensive line's great if you're the Colts. Chaz Green could be a swing tackle, guard, whoever's down. If anyone gets hurt, Chaz Green can do that, which is what he should be in the first place. I think Samuel Cosmi is a no-brainer for one of the best team that has one of the best defenses in the league last year. And they're going to need a quarterback, but I trust the Colts to figure that out after signing Rivers last year. The Titans don't really need much. They probably need a quarterback a little better than Ryan Tannehill, in all honesty. They might need a receiver, although I think they could replace Corey Davis easily enough in free agency this year, maybe with someone more talented than what we've seen from Corey Davis so far. I'm going to take Zaven Collins. He's a linebacker out of Tulsa. Total luxury pick. In my honesty, there's not gaping holes on this team by any means. The two biggest holes, I think, on this team are linebacker and edge rusher. I think Zaven Collins is really good at doing both of those things, so I think he works out great here. I have highlights of him going right now, but just go watch more Zaven Collins. You're doing yourself a disservice if you're not watching Zaven Collins. So yeah, that's all I can leave you with for this pick for the Titans. Zaven Collins is a beast. He's so fun to watch. Please go watch him. Please watch Zaven Collins. He's so fun. The Jets. The Jets, they need just a lot of help all over the place. I think the offensive line's good enough. If we learned anything from the Super Bowl, the three most important things in football always has, always will be quarterback, offensive line, defensive line. The Jets' offensive line, I think, is serviceable. Maybe we'll find out by next year that George Fant stinks and we need to get rid of him. And I think they can take a guard in like the second or third round this year. So I'm not worried about the Jets' offensive line. So the defense is the next logical step because there's no receivers here I really like. So defensively, I think what we learned from the Super Bowl, the most important thing is edge rusher. And you want a guy that's not Terrell Basham being one of your best edge rushers. So I'm going to take Joseph Asai out of Texas. You could argue 24 is a bit of a fall for Asai. I really like him out of Texas. He's my 4th best edge rusher behind the 4 guys that have already gone. So with that, and Quinnen Williams, and Folo, however you say his last name, I suck. He's a good interior guy. So you have a really good inside. CJ Mosley hopefully back at linebacker. That'll be clutch. The secondary, Marcus May's a great safety. The corners aren't that bad. Like Bless Austin's pretty good. Bryce Hall's going to grow into his own. With Joseph Asai being out of his defense, if Zach Wilson is as advertised, like, the Jets could be a hype team next year. And that makes like my skin crawl after them being so bad, like thinking they were going to go 0-16 this year. But the Jets could be a hype team this year if they're able to add Joseph Asai as well as Zach Wilson in this draft. You see the highlights of him right here. So I like Joseph Asai here to the Jets. Next, they got the Pittsburgh Steelers. And they're going to be taking Elijah Vera Tucker for me. The Steelers are probably going to need a new tackle if Andre Villanueva leaves. And even if he doesn't, they need more offensive line help. The offensive line was pretty sad this year. Okafor at right tackle wasn't any good. Inside, they could use a little bit of help. The Big Ben is pretty much stationary at this point. He's not what he used to be. They're still going to continue with Big Ben. Just give him his due diligence. Let him be the guy on his way out. I think he's probably done after this year. Steelers used to have an amazing offensive line. Let's try and get back to that. Elijah Vera Tucker can play anywhere. I think he's a good lineman out of USC. I think this pick makes a lot of sense for both sides. The Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jags have a butt ton of needs right now. I think Trevor Lawrence makes it so you can sort of ignore the offensive side of the ball. That's just how good he is. Like, he'll make any receiver work. I think probably offensive line could be a need. I'm going to wait for the second round because there are definitely guys who are going to be there that are viable. I'm going to take the best safety in this class. I think the Jags need a safety, so I'm going to take Trevon Moehrig. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Outside of TCU, best safety in this class without a doubt. They need a playmaker. Trevon is a playmaker. I think this pick makes a lot of sense for the Jags. They just have so many needs on Jacksonville. So this is where I'm going, is just take a really good defensive playmaker to try and win this team some games. The Browns now. The Browns, this is just a common pick for the Browns because they really need linebacker. So we're taking Jeremiah Owusu Koramoah. I just call him JOK. The Browns linebackers are not good. You know this because they lost Joe Schobert and they got worse somehow. For most teams, I would call that addition by subtraction. But no. Instead, the Browns actually felt it. I think he's probably the best pure linebacker in this draft. Like, Micah Parsons and Zaven Collins are, like, really good at their own things. But, like, at just playing linebacker, I think JOK is really good. I wish I had more to say about this pick, in all honesty. The Browns are really good. And that's, like, weird. They almost beat the Chiefs. I think they probably put up a better fight against the Bucs in the Super Bowl than the Chiefs did. Just because of that chippiness of Baker Mayfield. I just think JOK improves a really good Browns team already. This is going to be the first, like, what the hell pick. And Baltimore's picking here at 27. And I'm going to pick Patrick Jones out of Pitt. I don't even really... I have a hard time explaining this, but when I watch Patrick Jones and I look at him, I just see a Baltimore Raven, right? He's super fast. He has crazy pursuit. He has a knack for getting to the ball. I understand that he has like a 3rd-round grade, and like he's tight in certain spots, and he needs to develop more moves than just being athletic. And I think he'll learn that in Baltimore. I really like what I see from him. He screams Baltimore Ravens defensive end. They're losing a lot of their pass rushers potentially this offseason. Pernell McPhee, potentially Yannick Ngakoue, Matt Judon. All of those guys have a good chance of being gone. I think this Patrick Jones pick here makes a whole lot of sense to the Ravens. So he's going to go 27 for me. I also think he's better than a lot of people are giving him credit for. I'm not just saying I'm only picking this pick because he fits the Ravens. I also think he's really good. We're going to talk about the Saints now, and the Saints are a team that's hard to talk about because they are Houdini magicians, and there are $6 bajillion under the cap space, and they still are able to keep spending money. So I don't know what cuts they're going to make and how that makes any sense. So I'm just going to look at the roster right now because I don't know what the Saints are going to do. I'm just looking at the roster and seeing what the Saints need. I see a need at linebacker. I think they're pretty solid everywhere else other than quarterback. I think they like Taysom Hill. They'll probably bring in a free agent quarterback as well. But other than Demario Davis, they don't have a good linebacker on this team. So I'm going to select Nick Bolton out of Missouri. If you're just looking at him, he's a heat-seeking missile. Really good, really solid. And all the Saints can really ask for at this point is just a solid top-to-bottom player. If JOK is gone, I could see Bolton being as good as going to the Browns. I'm high on him, and I think he makes a lot of sense to the Saints. Although when I do my mock draft 2.0, which is going to be after free agency, this could look a lot different. But I have Nick Bolton here right now. The Packers are not going to draft a receiver in the 2021 NFL draft because they are stupid and don't know how to help themselves. They totally should get another receiver to pair with Devontae Adams on the outside. I am not the Packers GM, and I'm not dumb, so I'm going to select Terrace Marshall, who is probably out of the box more talented than Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He doesn't drop the ball like MVS does, and either way, giving the league MVP another weapon other than Adams is a no-brainer. Assuming David Bakhtiari is back okay this season at some point, there is no excuse not to get this done, Packers. You were almost in the Super Bowl this year. I think next year your window's starting to close with Rodgers. He's already pissed off. Get him a receiver. Please get Aaron Rodgers a receiver. And we'll be golden. Okay, so we go on to the Buffalo Bills, who are so close to making it to the Super Bowl. They just had a pass through the Chiefs. And I have a bit of a hot take here. So the Bills' pass rush is getting older. It's still good, though. So I want to do something inside. And when I talk about interior defense, you think Christian Barmore immediately, a guy to pair with Ed Oliver. And I'm not doing that because there's a guy that stuns me even more than Christian Barmore. I don't know how much he's known in draft community. He is. Not as a first rounder, though. And I think he is that good. His name's Davion Nixon. He's out of Iowa. He was dominant, and I mean like dominant at certain times for Iowa. And if the Bills can tap into that with Ed Oliver and Davion Nixon, this would be the highest upside defensive line in the league between those guys and AJ Epinesa, who's already played with Nixon. So there's already some rapport there on top of Jerry Hughes and Mario Addison. This defensive line only gets better. I think Davion Nixon's upside as a pass rusher is better than Barmore's, who we forget that he was quiet for a lot of the season. I think Nixon is a bit of an unknown right now, but I think as the process rolls along, he's going to shoot up boards a bit, and I would not be shocked if he is a first rounder. And I think he'd be a slam dunk for the Bills. One of my guys, Davion Nixon. The Chiefs, another one of my guys. I am going to have them take a big old risk here. I think if Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz are back next year, I think that's the plan, right? Is for both those guys to be back. If I'm wrong, I think offensive lineman's the pick here. But I think if they are back, I think the biggest need on this team is linebacker. Again, like the Saints. Really good teams' biggest needs are at linebacker, I guess is a theme here. Chiefs secondary is good. Their pass rush is good. They have Tyrann Mathieu at safety. Let's take a linebacker. Who's the guy there? Because the linebackers people are saying are worth it in the first couple rounds. JOK, Parsons, Bolton, Collins, if you want to call him a linebacker. So I'm going to risk it for the biscuit and take Dylan Moses out of Alabama. He was not the same after he tore his ACL this year, and that's why he fell. I'm going to bet, if I'm the Chiefs, on him returning to what he was before the ACL tear, because good Lord, Dylan Moses was the best linebacker in this draft before then. And I know you can't always get fully back to what you were, especially at a position that takes as much athleticism as linebacker. But I think Dylan Moses is a player that's worth it to risk it for. Even still, I know there was a drop-off. I know he might not be as good. But I think even so, even if he's not 100% of what he was, I think he's one of the better linebackers on the Chiefs if they make this selection. So I really like Dylan Moses. He's going to go here to Kansas City. And we make it to the end. After 40 minutes of this, woohoo, we got to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Between two guys here, we'll talk about the other guy in a bit. We're going to take Jaelan Phillips here. I just think his story is great. I think the story makes him... I know marketability isn't a big deal when you're trying to win another Super Bowl. But I think you'll sell some Jaelan Phillips jerseys. I think he was really good at Miami last year, which is another reason people have him as a first rounder. It's not a reach by any means. I think Jaelan Phillips is a really good pick. He's bendy. He has some good hands. He replaced Greg Rousseau, a big shoes to fill. There are going to be those. I think the biggest questions about him are those injuries. Why he left UCLA? I think that's the only thing keeping him from being a higher first-round pick. Bucs are probably going to lose Shaq Barrett this offseason. He's going to be like one of the big prizes. I don't know if they have the money to bring him back. If they do, cool. I'm still okay doing this pick anyways, because the Bucs are such a good team, and I think Jaelan Phillips is such a good player. But if Shaq Barrett's gone, I think the defense is in good hands with Jaelan Phillips. You're watching him right now. Good bend. And while he is a drop-off from Barrett, I think he'll do a decent job replacing him. So, that's the whole mock draft. If you guys stuck around for the whole thing, thank you guys so much. Real quick, I'm just going to name off five guys that you should be ecstatic for your team to potentially grab in the second round. We're going to start Carlos Basham, the guy who I was between him and Jaelan Phillips for the Bucs. Carlos Basham, if he's not picked in the first round, he's not going to make it far into the second. He's a really good edge rusher out of Wake Forest. Christian Barmore, I think he's the best pure defensive, big defensive tackle in this draft. I'm just more impressed with what I've seen from Davion Nixon in a couple places. So Christian Barmore, Rondale Moore out of Purdue. He's an athletic freak. He's a jackrabbit. Just impossible to bring down. He's really good. If you need a slot receiver, Rondale Moore. Najee Harris, ridiculous running back out of Alabama. Talent-wise, he might be a top 5 player in this draft. Just running backs, you do not draft them in the first round. And then finally, Wyatt Davis out of Ohio State, an excellent guard, my favorite guard in the draft. Only reason I had Elijah Vera Tucker over him is his versatility. So those are 5 guys to look out for in the second round. That's all from me today, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I have been Mo Sports Network. Thanking you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked the video, please, 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 please like it. I want this video to get around. If you didn't like it, thumbs down it. Tell me why. Tell me why. I don't know shit about football. That's cool. And then if you really liked it, please hit that subscribe button. We're at 100 now, but let's keep it going. Let's keep this thing going, guys. So that's all from me today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Peace out.